Long ago, in the country of England, there was a cruel, greedy king named Richard. He treated his subjects very badly and punished anyone who opposed him. He also taxed his people as much as he could. Gold, riches, crops, and livestock, he wanted them all. If you could not pay King Richard's tax, you would be imprisoned, or worse. Of the people in Richard's kingdom, there was only one person who dared to challenge the king's authority. His name was Robin Hood. When the king's men came to collect taxes from his village, he stood with his sword ready and told the villagers not to give the soldiers a thing. When the king was told what had happened, he was wild with anger. He declared Robin Hood to be an outlaw and demanded that his soldiers imprison him immediately. The soldiers came to arrest Robin, but he fought them off and escaped to Sherwood Forest. Robin knew very well that once he was imprisoned, he would never be let go, and there would be no one left to help the poor. Robin fled deep into the forest. Eventually, he reached a brook that was being guarded by an enormous man. "Hello, friend. What's your name?" the man asked. "I'm Little John." Robin explained who he was and how he was rebelling against King Richard. Little John was happy to hear of Robin's bravery, for he too hated the king. They crossed the brook and agreed to work together. Robin Hood and Little John were walking through the forest, trading stories about King Richard's soldiers, when suddenly they were surrounded by a frightening group of ruffians. The ruffians approached with their bows and axes raised. Little John was certain that they were going to be robbed, but before a fight could ensue, Robin spoke up. "Hello, men. Is this where the outlaws gather? I have just recently become an outlaw myself and need a place to stay." The men gave a welcoming cheer, for they were also wanted by the king. Robin Hood told everyone of his plan to rob the rich and give back to the poor. The outlaws cheered again and promised to do whatever they could to thwart King Richard. One day, Robin and his men discovered that a carriage full of the king's tax collection was making its way through the forest. The outlaws knew a golden opportunity when they saw one. They hid in the bushes and trees, and when the carriage was close enough, they attacked. They robbed the carriage of all its treasure and sent the soldiers back to the king with empty coffers. Their robbery had been a great success. Robin and the other outlaws rode their horses into the village to distribute the wealth to the poor. The villagers were stunned but very happy. They cheered for Robin Hood. Robin was their hero. King Richard was furious and devised a plan to catch Robin Hood. He announced that there was to be an archery tournament with money given to the winner. It was well known that Robin Hood was a fantastic archer, and King Richard knew that Robin would not be able to resist showing off. Notices about the tournament were hung all around the countryside, and when Robin and his friends came across one, Robin bragged that he would participate right under the king's nose, and even win. The day of the tournament arrived, and the king sat on his throne and observed the contestants. People from all over the kingdom had come to participate in the great contest. Many of them tried their luck, but nobody was able to hit the bullseye. King Richard was disappointed. There was no sign of Robin Hood. King Richard himself was a superb archer. He descended from his throne, took his bow and arrow in his hands, and let the arrow fly. The arrow went straight into the center of the target. Bullseye! The court applauded, and with a satisfied grin, The king declared himself the winner. Just then, a disguised Robin Hood stepped forward and said, "I haven't had the chance to shoot yet. Would you mind if I tried, Your Majesty?" The court was shocked. Who was this bold competitor who dared to challenge the king? Robin shot his first arrow directly into the tip of King Richard's arrow, splitting it in two. The spectators were utterly stunned to behold such a marvelous talent. When King Richard asked him his name, Robin laughed and pulled off his disguise. "I'm Robin Hood. Surely you remember me." The king shouted triumphantly. His trap had worked. His men caught Robin and led him to the dark jail cell where he was to await his fate. The news of Robin's capture reached the outlaws of Sherwood Forest. Little John and the others disguised themselves as poor villagers and went to where Robin was kept. They flattered the soldiers for being so smart and brave in capturing the notorious Robin Hood, while some of the other outlaws went up to the roof of the cell. The outlaws dug a hole in the roof. They lowered a wooden platform into Robin's cell. He hopped on the platform, and his friends pulled him up. The foolish soldiers had no idea that Robin had escaped. As Robin and his men dashed through the castle courtyard, they came upon a royal granary. This was where King Richard was keeping all of the crops he had collected from the people. Robin and his men grabbed as much as they could. Then they stole some of the guards' horses and rode to the nearest village. They gave the grains back to the poor farmers. The villagers cheered for Robin and his merry men. Robin promised that he would always be there for them, and pledged that as long as King Richard was on the throne, he would be there to oppose him. He and his men rode back to Sherwood Forest to plan their next move. But that is another story.